Well, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Another Lunch and Learn session in action right now. My name is Kenny Jang with Church Butler, and I've got sitting across from me, across the interwebs, we've got my friend Paul Fleming. Great to be with you today, Paul.
Hey, it's great to be here. I always love hanging out with you. This is going to be fun.
So we are conference buds, and one of the things that I think immediately resonated with each other is the dual nature of our personalities or personas, is that we are both practitioners that have worked in the church, right, as ministry staff, and then on the outside consultants or supporting the ministry and vision of churches out there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey quickly on both sides of that fence?
Well, I grew up in the church. I've been around the church a long time. In fact, my dad was a pastor and a missionary. I spent some time overseas, in fact, in churches. So I've been around the church a long time, and when I kind of grew up and figured out what I wanted to do with my life, I started a church in Portland, Oregon. In fact, we started on Easter Sunday about 12 years ago and had a great run of that. Did that for about 5 years. And
Portland that is a spiritual wasteland. It's hard to do a church in there.
It's tough, man. It's tough, but it was a great experience. Had some great relationships we built there, and this church is still going strong, and love those people out there. Then I moved back to Dallas, started doing a lot of consulting, and also jumped into work at Lake Point Church here in Dallas, a multi-site church here, and became the communications pastor and led a fantastic team of designers and web designers and all kind of people doing all of our communications. And we had a great time, and that was a whole different ballgame. So being able to see it on both sides of the spectrum, from a church of 300 to a church of 30,000, was really enlightening and a great experience for me.
Yeah, and what I appreciate the most, though, is that you can empathize with the ministry leaders and staff that are watching this conversation today in a way that I think is very practical and tactical. And so I love that, always having conversations with you. So today, let's get straight to it for our Lunch and Learn. We're talking about Easter because it's the countdown to Easter. We are entering March, and Easter for this year is April 16th. It's mid-month. It's right smack in the middle, and it's not much time left, but there is actually time for some people to actually lay out a game plan as we go down that, the runway to Easter. So you and your group at Church Inc. have put out a pretty incredible resource after looking at it. Why don't you share with us exactly just the 30,000-foot view of what it is, and then we can talk through some of the elements in it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny about Easter, the date always changes, right? With Christmas, you always know when it's happening. But with Easter, every year, sometimes it's early, sometimes it's late. But what's true is that something I've discovered is that no matter when it is, if it's early or late, we always seem to be behind, right? We're never, even if it's like this year, April 16th, that's late, but we got a few extra weeks to plan. But I guarantee you there are so many church leaders out there right now just sweating it. Or I have some friends I talked to this week, they haven't even thought about Easter yet. They're just way behind. So we put together a great resource that pulled together 2 decades of experience working in the church, and just said, what are the checklists that we need? What are the things that we need to be thinking about? What's our timeline need to be looking like? What are the assets that we need to pull together? And not just, of course, we do at Church Inc. a lot of printing and signage, but we started looking at it from the holistic side of not just print and signage, but also what was our social media channels and our website communication channels need to look like. And so it's a great free resource. It's just loaded with some checklists for leaders. And I might say, it's for churches of all sizes, small churches, large churches. It's a great blueprint. We call it a roadmap, communication roadmap for Easter. And full of great ideas, some tips that we've learned over the years, and we just want to share it with people and maybe help de-stress this time of year a little bit and make it a better experience for them and their community.
One of the things I really appreciate about the resource is that you actually share with them, I think it's 5 specific milestones or deadlines, so that people are keeping pace and understanding where they are in this whole game of getting ready for Easter, right? Can you share a little bit about that? Why it's important to stay on top of that?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I mean, we're always behind on it, right? And so it's funny because I threw this out to a few people this week, and I just said, "Hey guys, it's about 8 weeks from Easter right now, this week, and so here's where we need to be." And you could kind of see the collective gasp of people going, "What? We haven't even thought about this yet." And so I've got 5 key deadlines that I kind of put together and have used for years that are kind of things like, when do we need to get the concept ready and the theme ready for Easter? And that's maybe 10 weeks out. And then when do we need to start proofing the collateral? And we need to actually get things to print. And when do we need to actually get the website up? And there's some key deadlines. And in this resource, we list out all 5 of them. And we tried to make them generic enough so that no matter when the date is every year, it's still true because we put like week markers, 2 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out. And so I would encourage everyone to download it because we're at 8 weeks now. And so there's some real key milestones that they need to be at. And my guess is a lot of churches are not there yet. And so we need to kind of probably pick up the pace and get on track.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I really like about it is that you did break it down into those steps, and then it's basically checklist for every single process, right? Whether it's communications for your service, stuff for your small group, email, social media, things that you have to talk about your website, signage needs. Signage is one of those like long laundry lists that you just it's hard to just sit down and tackle all at once. And so having those lists and checklists available, I think, is just really, really, it's a blessing, it's a resource, especially for people who are actually, to be quite honest, behind the 8 ball and haven't even thought about it
Yeah.
yet. This is kind of like the Cliff Note version to get you up to speed, right?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, let's be honest. It doesn't matter if you're a church of 100 or 10,000. It's just a lot of work. And there's so many moving parts and there's a lot of pieces. And so what we try to do with this resource is go, let's try to make it a little bit more methodical. And in fact, one of the tips that we have at the very end is whatever you do this year for Easter, go ahead and record that and put in a base camp list so that next year you've already got it. And that's the key, having some kind of checklist where maybe we give you some ideas, but in your context, you need 30 more things that you need to do, or you need 30 things less that you don't need to do. But for your context, put it in Basecamp and have a checklist so that you can pull that up and just kind of methodically go through it and not feel so stressed because you've already got your list and you're ready to go. And it's also important, I might add, that we kind of put those in order for people. People a lot of times start working on the digital assets, which is fantastic, and they get all excited about that. But they're missing that they've got a print deadline that's coming up, and they've got to
Yeah.
make sure they get that to press first, and then they start working on the other items. And so hopefully the resource will kind of help them walk through that a little bit.
Yeah, so so Church Inc., you guys are obviously in the printing business, and despite everyone thinking that everything's digital, there's so much to print, right? And it's not just paper; it's banners and signage and lawn
Yeah.
signs, etc. One of the deadlines is direct mail. How far in advance are you recommending people actually get stuff to Church Inc. in order to get that out in time?
Yeah, that's a great question. We recommend 6 weeks. And so that gives you some buffer time. Most of us as nonprofits, we want the nonprofit pricing with the post office, of course. And so with that, they don't guarantee an exact date of delivery. They kind of give you a 3 to 5 day window. And so we like to kind of build some time in for that. So if you can get things off to press 6 weeks ahead, it gives us some time to kind of, take care of the Murphy Law and see if there's something that's not right that needs to be fixed. And then we get it sent to press and then send it to the post office for delivery. And it gives you plenty of time so that they'll get that about 2 weeks prior to your service. That's about the sweet spot.
Gotcha. So, if you're thinking direct mail, then this is the time to actually pick up the phone at Church Inc. and start that consultation call to get an idea of what's needed. Right. We had another lunch and learn with my friend Peter Goweski in Hope City, Sarasota. He's a church planter, and they use direct mail for their launch of the church and filled the house. The overwhelming number of people who said on the connection cards that I got the information about this church through direct mail was actually pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an underutilized weapon of choice for church communicators these days, right?
Well, it is. And one thing I say a lot is that your offline collateral, such as a mailer, should have one particular goal, and that's to point people online. And so, whether it's an invite card or a mailer, the value in that is that they work in tandem with your online assets. And so, you're really pushing people to your website with a real easy to remember URL, such as yourchurch.com/Easter, or something really simple. And we're really trying to get people into the habit of going online to find the information, but maybe that mailer is the way that gets them there. And so we try to connect those dots a little bit.
Gotcha. And so, talking about some hybrid strategies, offline to online, do you recommend the call to actions in the actual, say, the postcard or the letter or whatever it might be, the mailer, to go to the homepage of the church? What's the URL? Where are you pointing them online?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for a big event like Easter, you've got a really fabulous opportunity. And so my recommendation is that you create kind of a more of a landing page and I recommend mychurch.com/Easter because everyone's going to remember that. Don't put some long URL or some hard to remember, something like that. Just make it really simple. But by doing that, you might be able to share some real specific info about Easter. Um, for instance, some larger churches need people to kind of register for a seat because seating is limited. And that way it doesn't clutter up your homepage and you can share some real specific info about Easter. So that's my recommendation. If you don't have that much content, though, you can always just point them to your homepage. But one of the values of pointing them to like a directory like /Easter is that you can track your results a little bit better too. So on your Google Analytics, you can kind of see what kind of traction came to that specialized URL.
That's really good. And you know, one of the things that I really like about your stuff is that you are able to show people, especially in this roadmap document, is that there needs to be some cohesiveness of all of your communications, right? There needs to be some consistency in terms of the reception of the message so that it looks the same, whether you see it on screens, whether you see it offline at home in your mailbox, or whether you see it in a flyer in a coffee shop, or if you see it online. There needs to be some consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like you're branding this little micro event for a period of time, and everywhere your audience looks in your community, they need to kind of go, "Oh, that's the church that sent me the mailer. Oh, and that's the billboard that I saw, or that was my friend that gave me that invite." And so everywhere they look, they need to kind of see those kind of pointers that are directing them to that one central location. And that's just so huge. And I think it's also important that it's a great opportunity for churches to kind of depict the culture of their church in these kind of big events like Easter, because all the collateral that we're putting out there, maybe there's people in your community that they just have missed you for some reason. They haven't noticed you, and now's a great opportunity to kind of go, here's the type of church that we are. And I think it's a missed opportunity if we don't kind of bring it all
Yeah,
together.
yeah. So one of the tools in the toolbox is lawn signs. Can you tell us a little bit about how you think people should be utilizing those? Because I don't think people are that creative about it. You see it in elections. The recent election, lawn signs were
Yeah.
all over. You see it even in now nonprofit or fundraisers for charities, for bike-a-thons and stuff. People are putting them on lawns. Is it appropriate for churches to do the same thing? What are you thinking about with lawn signs?
Man, I love them. I really do. They're very economical. We can do some fun things with them, like create custom shapes with them. They don't
Oh,
have to be a
really?
square. Yeah, we can make them a shape. If you got a special theme that you're trying to project, we can kind of cut them to that shape and do whatever. But there's two ways I think that are most helpful to use them. One is around your church property.
Sure.
That's an obvious, easy way. We like to stagger them maybe every 10 feet or 15 feet apart. If your local laws will let you do that, and
Right.
sometimes they're a little hard on that. But I think the better way to use it is if you've got the budget to do it, you give every person in your church one of these signs to take home and let them put there in their front yard. It's got very simple information, such as the date, the time, and the website, and that's it. And maybe some little call to action like join us at such and such church. But now what you're kind of doing is taking an offline tool and giving it kind of a little bit of a viral nature to it, because you could be promoting your church Easter service in 100 or 50 or 500 yards. And that's a really cool opportunity. And here's what's, I think, really important about that. It also inspires your members, and it gives them a chance to be evangelistic. It gives them a chance to let their neighbors know, hey, we're Christ followers, we're going to this church. And so it's one of those tools that you kind of get a double win out of.
Yeah, it's an easy way. We always tell people to tell your neighbors about it, tell your neighbors about it. And this is actually, it's kind of like a lazy way that people can get away with it, but probably more effective at getting the word out and then stimulating conversation. When you go out to get your mail or someone sees you walking the dog, it's actually a conversation starter.
It totally is. And I think that's really what, as leaders in the church, that's one of the things that needs to be on our radar. There's a
Yeah,
lot of tactics that you can do this and that. In different churches, things work in different contexts. But the most important thing that I think leaders need to be thinking is, how are we going to equip our members to go invite people in their
right.
context? Because, as leaders, we don't know everyone in our community. There's no way we can single-handedly do that. We can do our job from the stage, but we got to get it into the hands of the people and let them go be bold and learn those little baby steps of maybe just handing an invite card to somebody and going, would you like to come to Easter with us? For some people, that is a massive,
Yes.
massive
Yes.
thing. But it's actually a little tools like that are actually part of us building into their spiritual formation, which is actually kind of a cool process.
Nice, nice. As we close out this interview, what's the one thing people should be thinking about in terms of their preparation for Easter? What's the one piece of advice for the pastor that's a solo pastor, or maybe maybe an assistant pastor? Most of the churches in this country are 100 or less, so you're talking about 100, 200 people in the congregation. What's your advice in terms of planning the road up to Easter? What should be their number one concern, or what are they doing right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's kind of related to the last little thing that we were talking about. There's a lot of things that you can do, and our guide will give you lots of
Yeah,
ideas. Some of them you can afford, some of you may not be able to. But I think what the one thing, if I were to have 500 leaders in the room and go, what's the one thing you need to be thinking about? I don't think it's a necessary a tactic.
yeah,
I think it's more of a concept, and the concept is this: how are we going to equip and inspire people to invite their friends to Easter? To me, that's the one thing they need to be thinking about. That could be invite cards, it could be yard signs, it could be billboards, it could be Facebook advertisements, it could be mailers. But whatever it is, we need to be gathering in a room, either with our team or by
yep,
ourselves if we're a small church, and just going, how are we going to talk this up and inspire people to go get involved? If there's nothing else that we do, we don't have the fancy postcard, or we don't have this, there's nothing else we do. We've got to figure out, how are we going to equip people and inspire them to get their friend to come to church.
gotcha. That's good parting words. I really appreciate it, and I think it is. That's what the practitioner side in you actually brings out, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
about the tactics, it's not about the checklists. It's about something bigger. So, thank you so much for that wisdom and also the practical resource. Remind us, where exactly can they get this roadmap download kit?
Yeah, it's really simple. Our website is churchinc.com/roadmap. That's where we've housed this document. You can have it for free. It's our gift to you. churchinc.com/roadmap. And we'll be glad to answer any questions you got. Our team is standing by all the time for instant chat on our site. And so if we can help you think through that, we'd love to.
Awesome. And then, if they want to get in touch with you after today's conversation, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you directly?
Yeah, for me personally, probably on Twitter. My handle is @CastYourVision. And so that's probably the best way they can hit me up, and I'll be glad to interact with them and coach them through whatever their challenges are. I'd love to.
Yeah, the one thing I really do love about you and your organization is that it's just you're very accessible. You've been very, very accessible, which is kind of you would think that's intentional and assumed in all businesses, that they're customer service oriented. But I would say that one of the things that your support team is very responsive, and actually it's even questions that are outside of just paper stock and printing and stuff like that. It is about ministry and church. You are a ministry at heart. So I love the team that you've developed over there, Paul.
Yeah, I've got a great team, and I'll tell you, every one of our team members are church people, and so they get it.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for stopping by for today's Lunch and Learn. Really need to get you back to. I want to do a brainstorming session with you to really start to think about what are some innovative ways to use direct mail or other things offline. Even signage. I think signage is something that churches really need to talk about. So if you would come back another time soon for a Lunch and Learn, I would love to have that.
We'd love it. Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate it.
Okay. Have a day, folks, and drop a comment below. Tell us what you learned. Tell us what questions you have, and let us know how you're liking this Lunch and Learn series of our podcast and resource here at the Church Butler. I'm Kenny Jang. Thanks for watching today. Catch you next time here for another Church Butler Lunch and Learn.